You're listening to the School Success Formula with me, Lucy Parsons. Welcome to today's show. Today I've got a guest for you, David Rendle, who is here to talk about 5 things successful students do in A-level geography. And David is a very experienced geography teacher, and he's also a teacher of geography teachers, so he knows a bit about how to get this subject across to people. David is also teaching the How to Revise A-Level Geography Masterclass in the Extraordinaries Club on Thursday the 18th of November at 7 p.m. And this is adding to the suite of masterclasses that we have in the club, all of which focus on the skills that you need to succeed in each subject. So, what can you expect from the How to Revise A-Level Geography Masterclass? Well, in the masterclass, you'll discover a useful revision prioritisation technique so that you focus on the areas which will earn you the most marks, how to cut down the volume of case study detail, making it easier to remember, handy techniques to make case studies more memorable and meaningful, where to find more information about your topics so that you can demonstrate depth of knowledge, quick essay planning techniques, examples of excellent geography writing to emulate, common mistakes examiners see and how to avoid them, and exam skills so that you answer the questions in front of you in the time you have available. If you'd like to book onto this masterclass, you'll find the link in today's show notes, which are at lifemoreextraordinary.com/geography A-level. So that's lifemoreextraordinary.com/geography A-level. And you'll find the link to book onto the How to Revise A-level Geography Masterclass in there. So today's interview is really a taster of what you can expect, the kind of advice that you might expect from the How to Revise A-Level Geography Masterclass. And we cover 5 things that successful A-Level Geography students do. Let's go over to the conversation with David right now. Welcome to the School Success Formula, David Rendle.
Hello.
Hello, it's lovely to have you here, David. Could you first of all introduce yourself for the listeners so they know all about your career in geography?
Okay, thank you. I was a geography teacher in a secondary school for 25 years. Yes, about 25 years. During which time I was head of geography and head of the humanities faculty. But having retired from full-time school teaching, I have been teaching future geography teachers at university and also helping geography departments in schools to improve their delivery. I've also been an A-level examiner for both OCR and the EdXL boards.
Fantastic. And I've been an A-level examiner for geography for AQA, so we kind of round it off there, don't we?
There you go, we've got them covered.
Yeah. Okay, well, today you're going to share with us 5 things that successful students do in A-level geography. So we're going to make a start, and the first one you've told me is good time management in exams. So tell me a little bit more about that, David.
Yeah, so clearly to really do yourself justice in under exam conditions, you don't want to run out of time. Or to put it another way, those students who do well use their time wisely. And how do they do that? Well, practicing exam questions throughout the year under timed conditions not only helps to develop a concise writing style, a concise and accurate writing style, but also develops writing stamina. you'll remember what it's like, at the end of an exam, how your hand aches from writing so hard. Okay, well, that's what we want. Okay. Another suggestion here that a number of students do, and it can be very helpful, is to work out the number of marks per minute the particular paper offers. Okay, that's a simple bit of arithmetic, and it enables you to work out the time allocation for certain tariff questions. For a 2-mark question, you want 3 minutes or whatever, and for a 12-mark question you want 15 minutes. Okay, and doing that beforehand can actually help you to manage your time in the exam.
Definitely. I remember having my watch on the desk. I don't know if this is allowed anymore, actually, but having my watch on the desk and just being very clear about when it was time to move on to the next question.
Absolutely. And if you haven't quite finished that question, don't be tempted to carry on writing. Leave a bit of a space and come back to it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, sure. Good. And also, trying not to spend too much time on the low tariff questions, which really sort of relates to my previous point. But this is reflected in the examiner's comments that the more successful candidates, don't waste a lot of time on the low tariff questions. They get through those in the appropriate amount of time. And a related point, you might consider doing the essays first.
Yeah, definitely. I often found as well that the low tariff questions actually took less time than they needed. And so you can actually, well, you have to practice this and see what works for you, don't you? But sometimes if you're finding that the low tariff questions take less time, you can make yourself a bit of time, can't you, for the longer questions?
Yeah, get ahead of the game. Yeah, and if you know your stuff, you can quite often whiz through the low tariff questions quite quickly, can't you?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So that's my that's good practice for time management in exams in a nutshell.
All really important stuff, and it's not just applicable to geography, that stuff that you've shared there either, is it? It's applicable across the board, really.
For sure. Yeah.
So hopefully there's some people listening who aren't just geographers that are studying other subjects as well. Okay, the second point you've told me is that successful A-level geography students write quality essays in their exams. So how do they go about doing that?
Yeah. Okay, well, the key thing is to understand the commands from the examiner and to be really, really clear as to what evaluate, justify, to what extent do you agree, assess the relative importance of what those commands mean. Okay, and to help one sort of think about how to interpret those commands and to do very, very quick essay plans as a revision exercise. I refer to this a little bit more detail in the masterclass that I'm due to do. But you can do very quick essay plans. Essentially just write the essay title, create a 2-column table, and just jot down the points for one side of the argument on one side of the table, and then the points for the other side of the argument on the other side of the table, and then move on. You can get through quite a few essay titles in a fairly short period of time, just doing that quick planning exercise to get you used to how those commands work and making judgments.
Definitely. I think tables are so useful, aren't they, in organising your thinking, in essays, but also in shorter questions. Like if they say, describe and explain 3 reasons or something, you can use a table to work out your answer, or even give your answer in a table to a question like that, can't you?
Indeed. Yeah. Yeah.
Those are underrated.
Indeed. Yeah. Appropriate use of case study material in essays. Cherry picking the bits of the case study knowledge that you've got to support your argument.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to bash down everything you've learnt on a particular case study. And a good candidate realizes that they're very selective in the little bits of case study knowledge that they use to support their argument. That's very important.
Definitely.
It's all about the argument.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then obviously practice planning and writing essays using the mark schemes. Get feedback from your teachers. And this technique is covered in the Power Hour, isn't it, Lucy?
Yeah, and I'll link to the blog post for the Revision Power Hour that we've got freely available on the website. And there's also more in-depth resources about the Power Hour in the Extraordinaries Club. And we'll mention it as well in the masterclass, won't we? Because
yes, we will.
Everybody needs to know about the Power Hour.
Indeed. And then the other great resource that you can find online are the examiner's commentaries on candidates' answers. I will relate to some of that material in the masterclass to really get into the mindset of the examiner and understand where marks are earned and where marks are lost.
Yeah, in one of our previous masterclasses, it was the A Level RS masterclass, Religious Studies. Chris at Air, who delivered that, he said how important it was to make the examiner's life easy. And reading your slides for the geography masterclass, a lot of them sound a bit like exasperated examiners. It's just like, you're making my life difficult trying to understand what you're doing, or you're making it hard for me to give you the marks. So actually just looking at the examiner's reports, you can see what's going wrong for the examiners because the students aren't delivering. And once you know that, you can put it right, really, can't you?
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so I think I've covered the main points on exam essay writing. Good practice.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So you mentioned case studies in there. I remember learning case studies when I was at school and trying to learn every stat and fact and figure and really spending way too much time on that, and actually been quite disappointed when I came out of the exam because I hadn't been able to use all the information that
so frustrating, isn't it? And I've heard that from so many students. They come out, I learned all of that and I couldn't use any of it.
Yeah. So your next point is about focusing on what's important in case studies rather than learning the whole entire thing. So what can you tell us about that, David?
Yeah. Okay. So often the case study material in the book is in the standard textbook can be quite a daunting amount of material, as you say, lots of stats and information to assimilate. Do you really need all that information? Are you going to use all that information to write a top grade answer? Well, the answer is no, not really. So my advice, and I can't reiterate this enough, is try to get the key points of the case study onto one side of A4, no more. Okay, don't write too small either. Okay, again on the masterclass, I offer some examples of templates that you might use, A4 templates that you might use just to get down the key points required for that you will really need to know on the case studies.
Yeah, they're priceless, things like that. I've got some. I created the GCSE geography masterclass in the club as well, and I created some for that after working with students, and it really is so helpful to just give this finite amount of space for them to put in the information that they need to learn. to have covered that case study. Basically, it really concentrates the mind, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And then the other thing is, of course, you know, the case studies will cover places that you've never been to necessarily. Okay, and it can be quite hard to visualize what that environment is like. Okay, but we've got the wonderful resource of Google Maps or Google Earth on our computers, so you can figuratively fly to the exact location and then have a look at it from above, and then use Street View to actually go down and have a look at it at ground level as well. So that's a wonderful resource just to really get yourself a little bit more familiar with the location of the case study.
Yeah, it's a virtual field trip, isn't it?
A virtual field trip for sure. I mean, Street View is fantastic for that sort of thing. Yeah.
I wish it had been around when I was doing my GCSE, because I remember learning case studies, and they were almost like fictional places in my head because I'd never been there. I'd never really seen proper photographs of them. But the one that stands out in my mind is London Docklands. And the first time I visited that was while I was doing my degree. And it was like, wow, this place actually really exists. You know, actually having it come to life for you, it's amazing. But with the technology we've got now, we can all like visit virtually, even if we can't get there in real life, can't we?
For sure. Yeah. And of course you can find photographic images of places easily enough with an online search as well. Yeah. So those are my thoughts on trying to sort of distill the vast amount of case study information into something more meaningful and manageable.
Brilliant. So that's going to be so helpful for students. So the fourth point you've told me is about using exam resources wisely. So what do you mean by this, David?
Yeah. If I may, I'll just share an anecdote, truthful anecdote from my experience. Many decades ago, when I sat what was then O-level geography, we used to have a whole section of the paper on Ordnance Survey map skills, and I opened the map resource and just couldn't believe my luck, because it was an Ordnance Survey map of an area that I'd been on holiday to virtually every year of my young life, and I knew the area like the back of my hand. Sometimes you get lucky, okay, with the exam resources. Okay, so the examiner, let's work from the principle the examiner is not interested in wasting ink. Okay, no. Everything the examiner puts on the paper is meant to be useful to the students. Okay, so when you see a command, study figure 4, I would rephrase that and I'd say, don't just sort of study it, don't glance at it, interrogate it.
Yes.
Okay, try and get every last bit of information from it. Okay, look, if it's a map, look for the north arrow, look for the key, look for the scale, interpret every single item on the key. Make sure that you actually properly read the title of the resource as well. It's all potentially useful.
Yes.
Okay, and it gets you thinking as well. All
and
right. So
it's amazing how many marks, even if you know nothing about the topic or the question or the area, how many marks you can extract just from the resource that's in front of you, isn't it?
Absolutely. And sometimes just by spending a moment to really interrogate the resource, it can get you thinking as well, and maybe making connections that could help you answer the question. I think, well, why has the examiner put that bit of information on? What's that all about?
And people might be wondering, why do they do this? Why do they have stuff in exams that isn't stuff that you've learned in lessons? And it's all about the application of knowledge, isn't it? Which is higher order thinking skill. And actually the knowledge and the understanding are lower order thinking skills, and that's why they put this stuff in here, to see if you can think on your feet and use your geographical skills and understanding in a different context. So it's helpful for everybody, really, just to be able to go into the exam and think, you know, there's going to be something there that I can do something with, no matter how much revision I've done.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes, applying those geographical principles to the real world. That's what it's about.
Definitely.
And don't panic. You know, if you've got a resource there that you've never ever seen the like of before, don't panic. Just spend that moment or two really looking at it carefully, interrogating it, pulling out every single detail. Okay, and only then will you start to make connections with the theory that you've been covering in class.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, use your exam resources wisely. It's almost free marks if you can just calm yourself down and just look at it and be sensible about it, isn't it?
Lucy, there's one other point I wanted to make on that. It's just this. What occasionally can sometimes happen is that you may even find a clue to answer question 1 in the resources for question 3, for example. You know, sometimes there can be just a little trigger that can get you thinking, oh, hang on, wait a minute, I could use that in my answer on question 1. I hadn't thought of that. You know, so keep an open mind as you're using the resources on the paper.
Yeah.
Please do that. Yeah.
Definitely. Okay, well, we're on to our 5th point now, about how to be a successful A-level geography student. And this is all about being a real world geographer. So tell me what that means to you, David.
Well, a real world geographer is very aware of all the links, all the connections. Okay. In examiner speak, that's called synopticity, which is embedded in the assessment across all the A-level exam boards for geography. So what do we mean by this? It's about making links, synoptic links between different topics in the geography specification you're studying. I'm going to include a slide on that in my masterclass just to show you a technique for doing that. But just being aware, you know, are there any links between the carbon cycle and tectonic activity? The answer is yes. Okay. And geography is just a fantastic subject. It's so fascinating, you know, all these links that you know that exist out there in the real world. You know, one set of factors causing another set of processes, and then those processes triggering something else, and so on and so forth.
It's all interrelated and interconnected, isn't it?
For sure, for sure. If you want a recommendation, I would really recommend that you have a look at the YouTube video "How Wolves Change Rivers."
Say that again, David.
How wolves change rivers.
Wolves.
Right.
Wolves. Okay. How wolves change rivers. Well, we'll get the link for that and put it in the show notes.
It is absolutely amazing, and if you want a reason for studying geography, it's there, I think. I really love that video. Okay, so it's those connections between different aspects of the subject. I'd also really advise you all to make connections with your personal experiences as well. Okay, so many of you have traveled. You've probably traveled even more widely than I have, but some of you have, some of you haven't, but you've all been to places. Always try and make those links, make those connections between what you're learning in class and places that are real to you.
Yeah, definitely. And even if you haven't traveled that much, just the city or the street, the neighborhood that you live in, there's geography there for sure.
For sure, yeah. And
it's just about looking out for it and noticing it and thinking about it.
Indeed.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a student, a one-to-one tutee, some years ago, and she'd basically been told to learn all the case studies in the textbook, which she was struggling with, and some of them were good, some of them not so good. What we actually did over the 2 years that I worked with her is we created quite a bit of case study material from her experiences, from her local area and from her travels.
Mm-hmm.
That were just so much more relevant and interesting.
And she could write about them with some kind of authority as well, having
Indeed.
seen it.
And can I just offer a little perspective from the examiner's point of view? You'll know what I'm talking about here, Lucy. It really can be quite dull for an examiner reading the same answers, the same sort of answers, using the same textbook case studies again and again and again. Then you get a candidate who's written an answer which is clearly based on their own experiences, and it's just so much more interesting, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, so make an examiner's day.
Yeah, make an examiner's day for sure. Yeah.
Don't take that quite literally. Don't say, well, a day on a beach might be interesting if it's the right kind of day on the beach for an examiner.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess there's always a related question thinking about this that I've had over the years. Well, why don't we just make up a case study? Why don't I just make up a case study? Well, the fact is that the examiners are all professional geographers.
Yes.
And if they're not sure about some information in an answer, they're interested enough to go and check.
Yes.
So please don't make up a case study.
No, don't.
Fictional case studies will not work.
Yeah, you can use your own experience, but not fictional places. And the other thing I'd say about this, that I found myself using case studies that I learned at GCSE in my degree, and
absolutely,
not everybody's going to go on and do a geography degree, but really geography is that flexible a subject that what you've learned at any stage can be applied at any stage, so long as you're thinking at the right level for the stage that you're using it.
Sure. Yeah. Start, use a GCSE case study, work it up a little bit and apply it in the right way in an A-level answer, and you can do very well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And then my final point on sort of making the connections is making connections with current events.
Yes.
Keep an eye on what's in the papers and the TV news and the news feeds on the internet. Make the links between undertakings that are made at COP26 with your geographical knowledge on the carbon cycle and climate and so on. I wonder if any of you are keeping abreast of the developments on the island of La Palma in the Canaries, where the volcano Cumbre Vieja is currently erupting. What is the dispute? What is the dispute that Poland's having with the EU? How is that? How are those issues related to issues of sovereignty?
Yeah, it's all
power and borders. Yeah, so it's all there. You can open any quality newspaper and you can find geographical content there.
Almost every news story has some level of geographical content in it as well.
For sure. Yeah. So making connections, being a synoptic geographer is just vital, and it just makes the subject really come alive.
It really does. It makes you realize that the life you are living is a geographical life, don't you? Everything that you do, everywhere that you go, even the choice, like I do, work from home, and as you do as well, David, that is a geographical choice. It's a geographical issue, isn't it? So and all the food that you eat, the water that you drink, all of it's geography. So if you just start thinking about it, it makes the subject so much more exciting and more rich, doesn't it? Yeah.
So there we are, 5 things that successful A-level geographers do.
Wonderful. Thank you, David. Well, I really hope that has whetted people's appetites for the masterclass on the 18th of November. It's happening live on that date, and if people aren't able to make it, then it will be in the Extraordinaries Club in perpetuity. So thank you so much, David, for coming and sharing your geographical expertise with the listeners today, and we really look forward to seeing you on the 18th of November.
Looking forward to it. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
David shared some really, really useful tips on it during our conversation there, and I hope you can tell as well that me, having been a geography teacher, I'm very passionate about it all, and with both of us on the How to Revise A-Level Geography Masterclass, you are bound to learn useful ways of approaching this fascinating subject, which can also at times be overwhelming because of the quantity of content that you have to learn. So hopefully we'll see you there on the 18th of November 2021, and if you're listening to this in the future, then the masterclass will be inside the Extraordinaries Club for you to watch in perpetuity. So if you want to find out more and join the Extraordinaries Club, just go to theextraordinariesclub.com. Thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful day, and goodbye.